Oh my God, where did that suitcase come from? The scream tore through the cabin as the Boeing 777 jolted violently, as if shaken by a giant's hand. With a deafening crash, a Louis Vuitton suitcase fell straight from the overhead bin, missing Eleanor Thorne's head by just a few centimeters. Marcus Thorne shot up from his seat, his face flushed red, not out of worry for his wife, but out of anger. He jabbed a finger toward the economy rows, where Maya Jackson was sitting. "You there! Don't you know how to latch your luggage? You nearly killed my wife." His voice dripped with disdain, as if he had found the perfect scapegoat in the chaos. Maya lifted her head, her voice calm and steady. "Sir, that suitcase isn't mine." Marcus gave a sharp, mocking laugh, shrugging with contempt. "Of course it isn't. People with cheap stuff don't own designer luggage. You see, Eleanor, I told you, flying economy is basically gambling your life with careless people like her." The cabin erupted in murmurs. Some passengers glanced at Maya with suspicion. Others remained silent. She didn't argue further, only exhaled softly, as if used to invisible stones being hurled her way. Then suddenly the intercom blared. The co-pilot's shaky voice filled the air. "Code red! We've lost control of the primary flight system. I repeat, we've lost the primary flight system. Is there any pilot on board with experience flying an F-22 or an equivalent fighter jet?" "This is not a drill!" The entire cabin froze. 345 passengers stared at each other. F-22? That was the kind of aircraft only the world's top pilots were ever trusted to fly. So, who among them could possibly stand up? Certainly not the quiet black woman sitting in seat 12C, right? The moment the announcement ended, the cabin exploded into chaos. Children were crying, adults were screaming, and flight attendants rushed back and forth with faces drained of all color. Fingers scrambled at seatbelts, as if a strip of fabric could shield them from the fury of the skies. In that storm of panic, Marcus Thorne rose calmly, adjusting his silk tie as if this were nothing more than a delayed board meeting. "Everyone calm down." His voice boomed with false authority. "No need to panic. I've flown many times with my brother-in-law. He owns a jet." "I know the procedures," a trembling woman asked. Are you a pilot?" Marcus smiled, the kind of smile of a man used to podiums. "Not exactly, but I've spent hundreds of hours in cockpits. Trust me. Real-world experience matters more than textbooks." The sharp denial came from a young flight attendant, her voice cold. "No, sir. We need someone who has flown a fighter jet. Only they have the skills to handle a total systems failure in turbulence and storm conditions. This isn't about sitting in first class for hours. It's about life-and-death combat experience, not being a VIP." Marcus cut her off with a dismissive wave. "What you need is money to buy safety. And I have plenty of money. That should be enough." The cabin fell silent, not out of belief, but out of shock. How could anyone think money could replace the hands on the controls in the middle of a skystorm? Meanwhile, Maya Jackson still sat quietly in seat 12C. She didn't argue, didn't wave her arms. Her eyes half closed as if in sleep. But no, she was listening. The left engine's hum is steady, but gasping at high range. The plane's tilt is 7 degrees off to the right. The vibrations, staggered, like a giant beast wheezing for breath. This was not the silence of a passenger. It was the silence of a hunter measuring her prey. And her prey was the storm itself. Suddenly, the cockpit door burst open. A young man in a pilot's uniform stumbled out, pale as paper. Kevin Rostova, the co-pilot. His voice cracked in panic. "Please, can anyone fly?" "Captain Mitchell. He's unconscious. The autopilot is completely gone." I can't do this alone." A sob echoed from the back row as an elderly woman clutched her son's hand, whispering prayers. The air was so heavy you could hear each breath. Marcus rushed forward, clapping Kevin on the shoulder like a partner. "I'll take over. I know how to handle crises. I run a $500 million company. I've overcome tougher situations than this." Kevin stared at him, stunned. You don't understand. This isn't a boardroom." But Marcus cut him off, lifting his chin arrogantly. "A crisis is a crisis. The only question is who has the guts to lead." The truth rang silently. No, a crisis in the skies is nothing like a crisis on the ground. Here, words can't save anyone. Maya opened her eyes. She had seen men like Marcus countless times, men who thought their voices could bend gravity. Letting him step into the cockpit would be a disaster. She stood up. Not rushed, not loud, just one smooth, decisive movement. Her cotton dress brushed her knees as she stepped into the aisle. Each step sliced through the cries and gasps. She stopped directly in front of Marcus. For the first time, he was blocked. Her voice was low but carried farther than any scream. "Mr. Thorne, your company may be worth $500 million. But up here, the only currency is experience. And yours is zero." The air thickened. Passengers held their breath. Someone even dropped their phone to the floor and didn't bother to pick it up. Marcus's face burned as he prepared to shout back, but Maya had already turned toward Kevin. "Co-pilot, what's your name?" Kevin Rostova," he stammered, eyes wide. "Good. Kevin, I am Major Maya Jackson, United States Air Force. Tell me the status of your backup hydraulics and remaining fuel in pounds." Kevin froze. That introduction hit like lightning. "Major, Air Force?" Marcus burst out laughing, desperate to drown the shock. "Major? Her? Do you believe this? A woman in economy claiming to be a fighter pilot? This is straight out of Hollywood." But Kevin didn't laugh. He swallowed hard. The way Maya asked, fast, precise, no wasted words. There was nothing fake about it. Her tone, her authority, the weight in her words. It squeezed the air out of the cabin. They had underestimated the wrong person, and there is no shame sharper than realizing the one you mocked is the only one who can save you. If you believe pride will never replace true skill, hit like and comment respect to honor people like Maya, the quiet ones who carry the real weight. Because in just a few seconds, an unexpected twist would shatter the world inside this plane and force Maya to reveal her true identity. Marcus's laughter clanged through the cabin, hollow and sharp like metal against steel. In a plane already trembling through the storm, that sound felt like a knife severing the fragile thread of hope. He puffed his chest, his face flushed, eyes sweeping the crowd as if he alone commanded the situation. "Major, her? She looks about as much like an officer as I do like the president. God, she must have watched way too many action movies." A few passengers laughed along, not because it was funny, but because clinging to arrogance seemed safer than facing raw terror. The laughter mingled with muffled sobs, a bitter mix of denial and despair. In the dim cabin light, every gaze turned toward Maya. An elderly woman clutched her cane, whispering to the person beside her. "She's so young. Would the military really trust someone like her with a fighter jet?" A man in a tailored suit leaned forward, his voice low as wind cutting through cracks. "Women rarely make it into combat squadrons, especially a woman of color." Their words fell like ashes, heavy and stifling. They didn't need to say more. The shadow of prejudice already hung thick over Maya. She sat motionless, not defending herself. But her dark eyes, steady and cold, gleamed brighter than any cabin light. She didn't need to shout. She only needed to speak, and when she did, the entire cabin seemed to stop breathing. "This isn't a movie, sir. And in my world, we don't measure pilots by the price tag of their suits." No one laughed. Even the roar of wind outside seemed to pull back, leaving her words etched into the air, heavy with fear. Marcus's jaw clenched, his eyes blazing like a cornered animal. "Then prove it. Papers, badges, or is it just your mouth?" Maya didn't bother to look at him. Her gaze locked on Kevin, the trembling co-pilot dripping sweat. Her voice was steady, precise, like reciting a language only a select few understood. "The primary flight system on a Boeing 777 is vulnerable to cascading faults after a lightning strike. Did you try rebooting the auxiliary bus by isolating channels A, B, and C?" Kevin froze, his hand nearly dropping the radio. How do you know that?" "I just did. It didn't work." Maya gave a slight nod, continuing without pause. "Then the next step is switching to full mechanical reversion, manual control, bypassing every computer. That turns this plane into a flying boulder. The pilot has to feel the air currents with their body, not sensors. And only someone who's landed in a total electronic blackout knows how to keep it from dropping like scrap metal." Each word hit like a hammer against Marcus's fragile wall of arrogance. And with every blow, the eyes in the cabin shifted, from doubt to awe. A middle-aged man whispered under his breath, "Nobody could fake that." A young mother gripped her daughter's hand, tears streaking her face. Maybe she's our only chance. Marcus clung to his crumbling throne of confidence. His voice cracked, losing its usual authority. She could have read that online. Maya turned back, her stare slicing straight through him. The internet can't teach you how to survive a crash. Only blood and sweat can. Kevin swallowed hard. The way she spoke, without hesitation, without wasted words, he knew. This wasn't an act. She was a pilot, a real one. The cabin's mood shifted. No one looked at Marcus with trust anymore, only with confusion, even contempt. Their eyes now clung to Maya, as though their lives hung in the balance with every step she was about to take. Maya closed her eyes. For a moment, the thunderous engines dragged her back to a night in Syria. An F-22 struck by a missile, both engines dead, half a wing gone. Her comrade screamed over the radio, "Eject! Leave it!" But she hadn't. She had brought it back to base, sitting in the scorched steel like a shadow. That was why they called her Ghost. She opened her eyes, burning bright in the dim cabin. Her hand touched the cockpit door. The entire plane seemed to hold its breath. Then an explosion ripped through the night. The right wing lit up, fire spewing black smoke that twisted like a phantom outside the window. The cabin shook violently, lights cutting out, leaving only red strobes flashing like a heartbeat. Passengers screamed. Someone pointed, shrieking, "Smoke! From the wing!" Children wailed. Luggage crashed from bins, and a sharp, burnt stench choked their throats. Kevin stammered, his hands shaking so badly he nearly dropped the radio. Engine 2. "It's on fire! We're going down! God help us, we're really going down!" Seats tilted, people clung to each other, praying. Each second dragged longer than a lifetime. In the middle of it all, Maya didn't falter. She shoved open the cockpit door and stepped into the suffocating dark. Her hair trembled with the plane's violent shudders, but her stance was unbending, a pillar against collapse. And just when everyone thought it was over, her voice sliced through the chaos. Low, cold, sharp as steel. "Good. Now the fight is fair." The cockpit was a furnace of chaos. Warning lights blazed red, alarms shrieked, and every screen rattled as if about to break free from the panel. Kevin Rostova sat in the co-pilot's seat, his face pale, hands trembling as he gripped the yoke like it was the only lifeline in a raging sea. "Kevin," Maya's voice cracked like a whip. "Hands off the controls now. I have to hold it. If I let go, then—" "No," she cut in, eyes drilling into him. "You handle fire suppression and comms." "That's it." "I fly," Kevin froze. Slowly his shaking hands slipped from the yoke, disobedient even to his own will. Gasping, he nodded like a raw recruit pulled back from the edge of panic by a commander. Maya slid into the captain's seat. Her hands moved across the console with the precision of someone who had rehearsed these motions thousands of times. There was no space left for hesitation. Then the cockpit door banged open. Marcus Thorne stormed in, breath ragged, tie undone, fear twisting his face. "What the hell are you doing? You'll kill us all." "Let me—" Maya didn't turn. Her voice was a blade. "Out. This isn't a boardroom." Marcus's face flushed, veins bulging. "I have a right to be here. I've managed crises all my life. I know leadership." Maya tilted her head, eyes flicking to him for only a second, cold, razor sharp. "No, Mr. Thorne. Up here, the ones who think they know but don't are the greatest danger of all." The words struck him in his most fragile place. He gaped, but pride rooted him to the spot. He stayed, trembling more from ego than from turbulence. Maya sighed and turned back to the controls. Her fingers tapped the yoke like she was speaking to the machine itself. "In 2021, Syria," her voice dropped, not boasting but murmuring to herself, "my F-22 took a missile hit. Both engines are dead, half a wing gone. The manual said to eject, but I didn't. I brought her back." Kevin's jaw dropped. "That's impossible." "With that damage, couldn't fly," she cut in, her tone iron. "But I flew. That's why they call me Ghost." Silence filled the cramped cockpit, broken only by the tortured screech of metal. Marcus stepped back, sweat pouring down his face. He realized he wasn't arguing with an ordinary woman. He was staring at a living nightmare of the U.S. Air Force. Maya flipped a switch, her voice clipped and sure. "Mayday, Mayday. This is Ghost, requesting identity confirmation. I'm aboard civilian flight 7 Alpha 3 in severe distress. The tension snapped tight as a bowstring. Kevin stared, barely breathing. Would anyone answer? Then a deep, steady voice came through the radio, shaking the air around them. "Ghost, we hear you. This is General Miller, Strategic Air Command. We've had you on satellite radar. The entire East Coast airspace is cleared. The sky is yours, Major. Bring them home." Kevin almost dropped his headset. "Good General?" Behind him, Marcus went rigid, his flushed face drained white, his lips quivering without words. Maya gave a small nod, eyes still locked on the swaying horizon. "Copy, General." "I'll get them back." Whispers rippled through the cabin as passengers overheard snatches of the transmission. "General, the sky is hers?" The truth was out. The woman in seat 12C was a living legend. Marcus stumbled back, hitting the cabin wall. He didn't need anyone to tell him. He knew he had trampled the wrong person. Maya adjusted the yoke, her eyes like steel. Her voice cut back toward Marcus. "Mr. Thorne, there are 2 rules in my cockpit. Rule number 1, I'm in command. Rule number 2, never doubt rule number 1. She paused, her stare slicing through him until he shrank. "Now get back to your seat, strap in. Pray to whatever God you believe in, because the show is just beginning." Marcus staggered, nearly falling, and slipped silently out of the cockpit. He had no words left. Maya turned to Kevin. "Fire system status?" "Engaged. Flames weakening, but the engine's completely gone." "Good. Then we'll do what the manuals say is impossible." She pulled the yoke, forcing a controlled dive. The Boeing 757 roared, the fuselage shaking violently, passengers screaming in terror. But outside, the flame sputtered, then choked out into darkness. Kevin clutched the panel, his face ashen. "My God, you just used a combat maneuver to extinguish a civilian engine fire." Maya said nothing. Her eyes blazed, locked in absolute focus, like a conductor leading the final symphony. In the cabin, passengers began to understand. They were alive, second by second, because of the woman they had dismissed. The plane steadied, but still carved through storm clouds. One engine gone, half the electronics dead. The road home was long. Maya inhaled, her hand tightening on the yoke. She knew the real trial hadn't even started, because landing a crippled steel bird in a snowstorm was the last leap between life and death. And the only question left, did Ghost have the instincts to bring them back to Earth? "Ghost, the nearest airport is in a blizzard. 0 visibility." General Miller's voice came over the radio, steady and low. No tremor, no comfort, just the facts. "We can't guide you visually." Kevin glanced at Maya. "If we can't see anything, how do we land?" Maya never took her eyes off the white void ahead. "We don't need to. Give me surface wind, and shut down everything non-essential. I want to hear the airplane." "Hear the airplane?" Kevin echoed, as if saying it wrong might anger the jet. "Yes, let the body fly when the machines can't." It wasn't a suggestion. It was a command. He flipped the switches. Screens winked out like shutters slamming closed. The sirens went silent. Only the wind's hiss remained, the one surviving engine rasping, and a fine, needling vibration like a sewing pin dragging across metal cloth. In the cabin, silence fell. An old man shut his eyes and murmured in Latin. A young woman tapped 3 fingers against an armrest in a steady, superstitious rhythm. A child hugged a teddy bear, pressed its nose to the white window. "Hang on, bear." Maya lowered her lids, not to hide, but to open another sense. In her ears, the wind had a cold, stinging smell, rough as sandpaper. The shear layer was thick, pushing the right wing down, then sucking back up from the belly. She dipped her chin, eased the yoke barely. "Surface wind 28, gusting 40320 direction," Kevin read, voice still shaky. "Heavy ice, ILS, unreliable." "That's fine," Maya said, eyes opening. "Hold the frequency. Leave the rest to me." Marcus crouched by the cockpit door with a hand on his chest, as if afraid his heart would fall out. She's landing blind." "We're finished." No one answered him. A flight attendant snugged the strap across the old man and whispered, "In through the nose, out through the mouth." Just like that. It was the kindest way to say, all we have left is waiting in faith. Maya tilted her head and listened. Memory conjured the old training bay, the silver-haired instructor making her close her eyes, killing the sim's visuals until only the artificial wind remained. He'd said, "When everything betrays you, don't betray yourself. Feel, then decide." It wasn't philosophy. It was survival. Altitude 3,000. 2,800, Kevin called. Each number dropped like a pebble into a deep well. Speed steady, but descent fast. Still good, Maya said, forcing her breath into a metronome. Every swirl slapped the wing like a grabbing hand. She didn't fight the storm. She synced with it. Outside, white. No horizon line, no tree silhouettes, nothing for the eyes to latch onto. Inside human bodies, only strings drawn tight as violin wire. A hiss crept through the fuselage. Kevin lurched up. Sounds like... Ice is building. Windshield heat too low. Save the power, Maya said. We need it for control. 2,000. 1,800. Kevin's heart pounded against his ribs. Ghost, we're on one engine. Big crosswind. Right edge could... I know. Her black eyes cut to him. Stay on the radio, hear the wind, and trust me. In the cabin, the man who once said money buys safety didn't dare breathe hard. Eleanor sat beside him, hands resting on her knees, palms ridged where the belt bit into her skin. She glanced at Maya through the door's crack and shaped a silent word. Thank you. No sound, but the meaning was plain. The plane jolted. A suitcase snapped loose and thudded into the aisle. No one cried out. Every head was pulled forward, magnetized. 1,500. 1,200. Kevin's voice had gone hoarse. Gusts increasing. There, Maya whispered. Listen. The wind's tone shifted, howl into moan, then suddenly dropped out. A hollow, thin pocket like a stair's lip worn smooth. Maya drew the yoke hair, held the attitude, her left hand sliding the thrust like soothing a spooked horse. Don't let it balloon, she murmured. Don't let it drop. 1,000. 900, Kevin swallowed. Ghost. Brace for impact, Maya said, clean and flat. Time stretched into an endless thread. Then, crash, steel scraped ice. A blinding shriek knifed through ears. Seats hammered, belts bit into bellies. Someone who'd been holding their breath too long barked a cough. We're skidding, Kevin shouted. We're spinning. Keep it straight, keep it straight. Maya locked her shoulders and poured strength into her arms. Half degree left. Half, no more! The jet slewed a half arc, the fuselage leaning, the gear plowing the ice like a long gouge across frosted glass. Passengers slid to one side. Their cries braided with the screech into a sound like wind and surf. The taste of burnt plastic leaked through the vents, bitter in the throat. Bleeding off. Bleeding off? Kevin repeated a mantra. Maya clenched her teeth. She remembered the scorched frame in Syria, when everyone had said, impossible. A single negation had once saved her life. Impossible doesn't mean don't do it. She feathered the yoke, fed in counter, kept the nose aligned with a runway her eyes couldn't see, one that existed somewhere on the map inside her body. Slide, slower, slower, stop. Silence, flat and perfect as a blank sheet of paper. No more screeching, no more roar. Only the sound of the living. A single awkward clap snapped out, then a second, a third. Suddenly the cabin burst. People crying like children, hugging like long-lost family. Laughter. Oh my God. Thank you, came in waves. A young man shook, smiling with tears pooling at his lips. We're alive. God, we're alive. Kevin sagged back, hand over his face. Ghost. You just did something I didn't dare imagine. He laughed through a sob. If anyone asks, I witnessed a miracle. Not a miracle, Maya said, unfastening her headset, voice level. Just a pilot's work. She stood. The cockpit door opened. No one spoke. The aisle parted by itself. They watched her pass the way you watch a single tightrope that's just carried you over a chasm, the line that saved you. Maya's eyes found Marcus. He was curled into his first-class seat, jacket skewed, hair plastered with sweat. His hands were laced together to hide the shaking, but the white knuckles betrayed him. In that instant, he seemed 10 years smaller. She stopped without speaking. Her look held no cheap contempt, no pity. Only the truth. Some people save. Some people appraise. Today the scale had tipped for all to see. Eleanor leaned in and whispered very softly, Thank you. Maya didn't answer. She gave a small nod, enough for one person to understand. A flight attendant cracked the emergency door. Cold wind rushed in, smelling of fresh broken ice and a faint wash of fuel. The rescue beacon swept across Maya's face, revealing pale traces of wear along her cheekbones, the marks of endurance, not defeat. She stepped out. No raised hand, no bow. Quiet as a shadow, true to the name the sky had given her. The cabin's noise kept swelling like a tide. But in a corner of first class, a bubble burst. Marcus stared into the space in front of him, as if a mirror hung there. In it, he saw himself earlier, pointing, barking, believing a $20,000 ticket was a talisman. Now he saw a hollow. He had survived. Good news for everyone. For him, a sentence. To live remembering the moment a silent greatness threw light on him, and all the noise of his life turned out to be dust. General Miller returned on the radio, voice deep with a hint of warmth. "Ghost, well done. Rescue is moving in." "The sky owes you one more time." "The sky owes no one," Maya replied. "People do. Get them home." Kevin looked from the cabin to Maya, his lips forming. "Will you be okay?" "Yeah." Maya tightened the strap of her watch like buckling a normal day. Just another flight. She moved on, stepping over the line between death and life as if crossing a painted stripe. The rescue team waited, eyes wide, already holding a story they'd retell for years. Inside the plane, voices lingered but softened. People called their families, laughing through tremors. Some snapped photos with shaking hands. Some just sat still, convinced the seat still vibrated, though it had stopped. Marcus didn't pick up his phone. He didn't know whom to call or what to say. Apologize? To whom? To the wife who'd escaped death but had heard every word he said. Or to the woman he'd humiliated just before she saved him. Some debts aren't paid with money. Some sentences need no judge. Outside, snow kept falling. White, dense cold. And through that white, a long scar, the slide mark of a broken-winged steel bird that took the storm's dare and won. The scar wasn't pretty, wasn't neat, but it was so straight you had to believe. Sometimes the only thing between people and the abyss is the will of one person who accepts responsibility. Maya looked back exactly once, not to collect applause, only to make sure the cockpit door was closed. Then she walked on, fading into the blinking red and green. The aircraft lay still on the ice, alive by a kind of miracle. But inside, there were people who would never be the same. A woman pilot who was once dismissed had saved hundreds. A billionaire who believed money could buy everything now wore a stain that would never wash out. And those passengers would forever tell of the day the sky went white, when the silence and courage of a black woman rewrote everyone's fate. What do you think? Is survival a reward? Or a sentence? Share how you feel in the comments, and like and subscribe so you won't miss more stories that reach the heart.